Good afternoon. It's July 30th at 1:30. We're back in session. We have a few public hearings. The first public hearing today is for a resolution to approve supplemental appropriation 2492 to the FY25 capital budget, Montgomery County Public Schools Sustainability Initiatives, in the amount of $180,467. The source of funds is state aid. Council action is scheduled immediately following this hearing. There are no scheduled speakers for this hearing, so this public hearing is now closed. I will entertain a motion to approve supplemental appropriation 2492.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Balcom, seconded by Councilmember Giwando. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous among those present, 9-0. We're going to move on to item number 6. It's a public hearing on a resolution to approve supplemental appropriation 25-4 to the FY25 operating budget, Montgomery County Government, Department of Health and Human Services, Maryland Community Health Resources Commission Hub Pilot Grant in the amount of $423,271. The source of funds is a state grant. Council action is scheduled immediately following this hearing. There are no registered speakers for this hearing, so this public hearing is now closed. I will entertain a motion to approve supplemental appropriation 25-4, moved by Councilmember Katz, seconded by Councilmember Balcom. All those in favor of this supplemental appropriation, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous among those present, 10-0. We're going to move on to item number 7, which is a public hearing on a resolution to approve special appropriation 25-6 to the FY25 operating budget, Montgomery County Government, Department of Technology and Enterprise Business Solutions, Department of Labor 5G Broadband Job Training Boot Camp Grant, in the amount of $1 million. The source of funds is a federal grant, and an amendment to the FY25 operating budget resolution 20-526, section G, FY25 designation of entities for non-competitive contract award status. Montgomery College, $330,000. WorkSource Montgomery, $280,000. Wireless Industry Association, $215,000. The source of funds is a federal grant. Council action is scheduled immediately following this hearing, and there are no registered speakers for this public hearing. So this public hearing is now closed. I'll now entertain a motion to approve supplemental appropriation 25-6. So moved by Councilmember Fani Gonzalez, seconded by Councilmember Balcom. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous among those present, 10-0. We are now through our public hearings in haste. To get to legislative session day number 17, we'll begin with introduction of bills with agenda item 8A, the introduction of Bill 1424, Vehicle Noise Abatement Monitoring Pilot Program. The lead sponsors are Council Vice President Stewart, Councilmember Fani Gonzalez. Co-sponsors are Councilmembers Glass, Balcom, Katz, Lutke, Council President Friedson, Councilmember Sales, and Councilmember Mink. A public hearing is scheduled for September 17th, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. Let me turn it over to the lead sponsors to make some comments, starting with Vice President Stewart.
Great, thank you. I want to start off by thanking my colleague, Councilmember Natalie Fani Gonzalez, for leading this with me, and also to thank Delegate Julie Polakovich-Carr, who in Annapolis during the last session led state efforts to pass state legislation to enable local governments to establish pilot programs to reduce excessive vehicular noise by implementing noise abatement monitoring systems known as noise cameras. So what our bill will do is establish a pilot program to enforce existing state exhaust noise laws using automated noise camera devices. For this pilot, the county will be able to place 3 noise cameras in locations across the county. These noise cameras will help to mitigate negative health and quality of life impacts experienced by residents from excessive noise from modified exhausts. I think it's important to note that modifying exhausts, particularly to make louder noises, is already unlawful, and it has just been difficult for us to enforce that law. And by having the noise cameras, we will be able to help our public safety members do that, and it will be the penalty after a warning is served would be for a civil offense, not criminal. really the main impetus for our office doing this is all of the concerns that we've heard from residents about the excessive noise. These modified mufflers interrupt sleep. They create noise levels that prohibit just simple conversations if people are out enjoying themselves in social settings. And this constant noise, there's more and more research showing that noise pollution is linked to physical and mental health issues in children and adults. It is linked to depression, heart disease, cognitive impairments, and strokes. And so for all these reasons, really the impetus behind this is regarding the health and well-being of our residents. And again, just want to thank all of my colleagues who have already joined on to co-sponsor this. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me turn it over to the other lead sponsor, Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank Council Vice President Stewart. I am so happy to introduce this very important piece of legislation with her, but also extremely proud to have, as part of the Montgomery County delegation, or Delegate Julie Palakavich-Carr. She really, her effort really led Montgomery County to take on this issue. And I just to add something else, besides of what Council Vice President Stewart said, is, sadly the reality is that folks who usually modify their cars to make this noise, they tend to speed. Mm-hmm. And Georgia Avenue, University Boulevard, Connecticut Avenue, these are roads that were created to have cars going fast. And let me just tell you, folks who tend to modify their cars do that. They drive fast, and that's illegal. And I think this effort will allow us to catch them. And at the end of the day, this is about, creating safe communities for people. And I want to thank everybody who has also co-sponsored, and I look forward to the committee work sessions in the fall.
Yeah, this is a major quality of life issue. I really appreciate the lead sponsors for taking this issue on, and want to express my appreciation as well to the chair of the Montgomery County House delegation, Delegate Palakavich-Carr, for her leadership in providing us with this authority to be able to put something like this in place. I know those of us, district council members in particular, but all council members, receive lots of concerns which really exponentially increased during the pandemic, where we really saw this become an even greater issue. And so thank you for the leadership being shown here. Let me yield to Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you. Didn't get in time to be listed in the packet, but would like to be a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that covers it, unless Ms. Wellens, who I believe has joined us virtually, has anything to add.
Nothing to add, Mr. President. Thank you.
Great, thank you. With that, this bill is now introduced. Oh, excuse me, Councilmember Joando.
Sorry, I thought I was on it. I'm not, but I'd also like to.
You are now.
Thank you.
Noted for the record, we've added the 2 additional co-sponsors. Thank you to colleagues. That bill is now introduced with the additional co-sponsors. Agenda item 9, we're now going to move on to call bills for final reading here before the recess, getting it in right against the wire here. Item 9A is the final reading of Bill 624, Property Tax Credit Disabled Veterans. The Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee recommends enactment with amendments. Let me turn it over to Council Vice President Stewart to give the committee report, and then we'll happily turn it over to Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez, who sponsored this particular measure.
Great, thank you. First, I want to thank Councilmember Katz for actually chairing this GO session, since I had to be virtual since I was home ill, but I was able to participate, and I'm glad to say that the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee recommends enactment of Bill 6-24 with amendments. This bill would establish a property tax credit for disabled veterans, set the amount of the property tax credit, set eligibility criteria to qualify for the property tax credit, require the continuation of the credit for surviving spouse of this disabled veteran, and generally amend the law regarding regarding property tax credits. The committee did take up a number of clarifying amendments from the county attorney's office, and also amendments to align with changes in state law that just went into place. But otherwise, we look forward to this moving forward to the full council.
Thank you. Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
Yes, I would like to share my appreciation to the GO committee for all their work, and I just want to highlight one thing that we kept hearing during public testimony, but also via email. The reason why we have a cap to $100,000 is not because we want to, but it's because it's mandated by the state law. We cannot go beyond that. With that said, I've been talking to a number of veterans in Montgomery County, but also statewide, and we are planning to go to the General Assembly this fall to amend that at the state level. So with that, thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you. I don't see any other colleagues wishing to speak. There are no motions here, so we do have a Government Operation Committee recommendation for movement. Is there, there doesn't need to be a motion, excuse me, because we have a committee recommendation. There are no amendments, and I believe this is a roll call vote, so I will ask for the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Lukey. Councilmember Lukey is absent. Councilmember Mink?
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales?
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Glass?
Yes.
Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Jawando?
Yes.
Councilmember Jawando votes yes. Councilmember Katz?
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Albornoz?
Yes.
Councilmember Albornoz votes yes. Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez votes yes. Councilmember Balcom?
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Friesen?
Yes.
Councilmember Friesen votes yes.
That is approved, 10-0. Congratulations. We're going to move on to item 9B. That's final reading of Bill 824, Human Rights and Civil Liberties, Fair Criminal History and Credit Screenings Amendments. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee recommends enactment with amendments. And this was a bill that we took up. This is intended to strengthen a prior bill that was put in place that has not been enacted in a way that follows through on the legislative intent. And so Councilmember Sales, talking with the departments and also with stakeholders, was able to move forward with a number of thoughtful recommendations, including some amendments to the initial bill that was moved forward to make it easier to implement and to meet the intent, but ultimately to ensure that the effort to not make prior history and background checks be prohibitive to somebody being able to access housing in our community, be able to work through. So the committee worked through those issues with Department of Housing and Community Affairs and Office of Human Rights, and was able to work through those with a few amendments. Want to really appreciate all of the work of the committee. The committee held a work session on July 15th, made the following amendments: required a landlord to use background check and credit screening addendum provided by DHCA for rental applications, required the lease to include a signed and dated addendum for the occupying tenant, removed the requirement for DHCA to collect a copy of the addendum during the annual rental survey and instead require an inquiry on the survey for the landlord to certify receipt of a completed addendum, essentially a checkbox as part of that survey, and require the Office of Human Rights to perform quarterly inspections of rental applications of a multifamily building. One of the things that came to light during this legislation was that the Office of Human Rights handles all of the issues related to housing without a landlord and a tenant in a signed lease. And many of the issues that we're talking about here are actually a prospective tenant who is not in a signed lease, which is really not under the purview of the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. And so that was part of the dynamic that the sponsor worked hard to try to navigate between those different dynamics. I think we successfully threaded that needle during the committee session with amendments that she and her team put forward. Let me turn it over to the lead sponsor for her comments, and then I can turn it to Ms. McCartney Green,
There are two more amendments that were missed.
oh, sorry. Please share the two amendments that I missed.
In addition to that, is to require that the disclosure statement be posted on a website operated and controlled by the landlord, and posted in a conspicuous place of the leasing office, and adopt several clarifying technical amendments.
Thank you. I missed two amendments. Thank you for the clarification. Let me turn it to the lead sponsor, Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to Ms. McCartney Green for all of your help in ushering us through this process. I'm so grateful that the bill, as Council President Friedson mentioned, passed out of committee. I want to thank Director Jim Stowe, Director Scott Bruton, and the many stakeholders who contributed to shaping this bill and getting us to this point. I also want to thank PHP members, Natalie Fani Gonzalez and Councilmember Jawando for their collaboration and support in getting this out of committee. And I am so grateful to my colleagues, Councilmember Katz and Councilmember Glass for co-sponsoring this legislation and their work to pass the Housing Justice Act in 2021. As Council President Friedson mentioned, Bill 824 strengthens the county's ban-the-box ordinance by preventing unfair discrimination against people with criminal histories and rental applications. It implements several amendments to ensure landlords comply with the existing law and prospective tenants are fully aware of their rights. In addition to creating full-time opportunities to oversee the compliance with the law, as we've already outlined, the bill requires special notice regarding the use of criminal arrests and convictions in rental housing decisions, annual reporting, specific disaggregated data related to rental applications, requires the landlord to maintain this information as part of the annual rental housing survey. And given that our residents of color are disproportionately discriminated against in housing decisions, and this bill certainly demonstrates our commitment to repairing those harms by investing in our diverse communities and ensuring that our severely understaffed and overworked Office of Human Rights has the tools needed to implement this law. And so I thank you again to all of my colleagues and look forward to a favorable vote on this bill.
Thank you. Appreciate your work and your team's work on this legislative effort. The goal is not just to pass legislation, but to make sure that the legislation is being enacted with fidelity, and this is an effort to ensure that that happens, so really appreciate that. I don't see any colleagues wishing to speak. We do have a Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee recommendation that's before us, which serves as the motion before the body. This is a roll call vote, and I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Lukey. Councilmember Lukey is absent. Councilmember Mink.
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales.
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Glass.
Yes.
Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Jawando.
Yes.
Councilmember Jawando votes yes. Councilmember Katz.
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Albornoz.
Yes.
Councilmember Albornoz votes yes. Councilmember Fani Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Fani Gonzalez votes yes. Councilmember Balcom.
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Friesen.
Yes.
Councilmember Friesen votes yes.
That is approved unanimously as well. Congratulations, and thank you again to Ms. McCartney Green. A lot going on, and you have really stepped up on this bill, but on a number of other efforts and duties, and so we really appreciate all of your work and your commitment to not only this body, but to the public, so thank you so much. We're going to move on to item 9C. That's final reading of Bill 1024, Contracts and Procurement, Local Small Business Reserve Program, Veteran-Owned Business Preference Points. The Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee recommends enactment, and I will turn it over to Vice President Stewart to share the Government Operations Fiscal Policy Committee recommendation.
Great. Well, the GO Committee held a session on July 18th to review this bill that was sent over from the County Exec's office. We recommend enactment as introduced. This bill seeks to establish a preference point system in the county's procurement program in favor of local small businesses owned by veterans that meet certain criteria. To be eligible for these points, a small business must have a valid veteran-owned small business or service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses certification from the U.S. Small Business Administration or the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. And I just want to thank Director Shetty and his whole team for the engagement and discussion on this at the GO Committee. And again, the committee recommends this with enactment as introduced.
Thank you. Ms. McCartney-Green, anything to add?
Nothing yet.
Unlike me, the Vice President gets all of the amendments and the summary correctly on the first try. With that, we do have a Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee recommendation, which does serve as the motion before the body. I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Lukey. Councilmember Lukey is absent. Councilmember Mink.
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales.
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Glass.
Yes.
Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Jawando.
Yes.
Councilmember Jawando votes yes. Councilmember Katz.
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Albornoz.
Yes.
Councilmember Albornoz votes yes. Councilmember Fanning Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Fanning Gonzalez votes yes. Councilmember Balcom.
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Friesen.
Yes,
Councilmember Friesen votes yes.
that passes unanimously as well. Let me yield briefly to Councilmember Mink.
Great, thank you. Thanks to the county executive for sending it over. Thanks very much to the GO Committee for your work on the bill. I did want to lift up, per our conversation earlier about Res J, the impact statement for this bill, which included a recommendation for improving the Res J analysis of it, Res J being racial equity and social justice, and wanted to note that the suggestion that they have is not something that necessarily needs to be part of this bill. So it's something that we could keep in mind for future, and their recommendation was to convene a BIPOC and other stakeholder group that would ensure procurement preference system is advancing racial equity and social justice with the inclusion of veteran-owned businesses and applying a holistic review of the system. And then flashing back to a recommendation that they made related to a previous bill that we could also consider in future, that their recommendation that we establish a tax credit or other financial incentive for severely disabled veterans who are renters, to ensure that severely disabled BIPOC veterans equitably benefit from this incentive. And so thank you to LLO, to the Office of Legislative Oversight for giving us some potential tools that we could consider in the future moving forward, and to all of my colleagues for their work on all the bills that we just unanimously passed.
Thank you for lifting that up. We're going to move on to item 9D. Ms. McCartney-Green will stay with us, as aforementioned, her considerable work in recent weeks. This is a final reading of Bill 1124, Finance Economic Development Fund, Make Office Vacancy Extinct, Grant Program established. The Economic Development Committee recommends enactment with amendments, and I will turn it over to the chair of the Economic Development Committee, Councilmember Fanning Gonzalez, to share with us the committee recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will simply say that this is one of the programs that have a strong track record, and the committee pretty much took the opportunity to analyze it and see how we could expand it, and that's what we did. It has a 4-0 recommendation with amendments, but there's one issue that we need to discuss here. I appreciate council staff for flagging this particular technical issue that I'm gonna let the attorney to talk about it, and after she's done, I'm gonna move forward the amendment as described by staff. So I'm gonna yield to you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fanning Gonzalez. And I wanted to note that this was raised in committee, but it wasn't formally adopted in committee. And so afterwards, council staff went back and looked through making some of the amendments and identified that as a clarifying amendment, that an applicant is eligible to receive a move grant if the director finds based on the information submitted by the applicant. And that would help to clarify that it's checks and balance, that based on the documentation submitted, on review, it would be approved. And so it doesn't change the outcome or the impact. It is more of a drafting and making sure that that language flows correctly. And so with that, I ask for.
Yeah, with that, I move that amendment.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fania Gonzalez, seconded by Councilmember Balcom. Councilmember Glass, do you want to speak to this particular amendment? Why don't we take a vote on that, if it pleases you? We'll take a vote on that amendment. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous. The amendment is approved. Let me turn it over to Councilmember Glass.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I also want to extend my appreciation to the members of the Economic Development Committee. This is yet another initiative that we have put forward here at the Council based on the work of that committee and the series of hearings and questions and inquiry that we've engaged on over the last 18 months. And this is just incredibly important. We all know that telework has changed our landscape. And here in Montgomery County, our office vacancy rate is at a record high, topping 18.2% countywide. And that is based on first quarter data by CoStar. And while a number of our residents are able to work from home and telecommute, we know that going to work in a physical location is good for our local economy, our stores, our restaurants, and our coffee shops. And we just got to keep doing more as we rethink our infrastructure, and that has been a part of the Economic Development Committee as well. Not every building is situated for return to office. Some buildings are old and outdated, and as we've had discussions in committee, should be reused, whether it's for housing or new office buildings, which have very low vacancy rates. But at the end of the day, we want to encourage businesses to move to Montgomery County and expand in Montgomery County, and that's what codifying this initiative will do. And so in addition to thanking my colleagues on the Economic Development Committee for our joint work and co-sponsorship of this, I do also want to thank Valeria Carranza and Joy Champalou from my personal office for their work, Ms. McCartney Green and Mr. Ali as well for providing information and technical assistance, and to the executive team who has recognized that this program has worked for the last decade and we want it to work for decades to come. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I don't see any other colleagues wishing to speak. This has been amended from the floor. It requires a motion for approval. So is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fania Gonzalez, seconded by Councilmember Sales. All those in favor? But don't we have? Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and for a roll call vote, yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Lukey. Councilmember Lukey is absent. Councilmember Mink.
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales.
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Glass.
Yes.
Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Joando.
Yes.
Councilmember Joando votes yes. Councilmember Katz.
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Albornoz.
Yes.
Councilmember Albornoz votes yes. Councilmember Fania Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Fania Gonzalez votes yes. Councilmember Balcom.
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Friesen.
Yes.
Councilmember Friesen votes yes.
Congratulations. That is approved unanimously as well, with the yays after the ayes again. So we are going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is District Council. Item 10, the council will now sit as the District Council for 4 agenda items. The first item is item 10A, which is the introduction of zoning text amendment Dormitory and Community Service Retail CSR Overlay Zone. The lead sponsor is the council president. At the request of the planning board, a public hearing is scheduled for September 17th at 1:30 p.m. This is an effort to implement the recommendations from the Tacoma Park Minor Master Plan. The Tacoma Park Minor Master Plan amendment was approved by the District Council on April 2nd, 2024. The master plan contained 2 recommendations for modifications to the zoning code to allow dormitories as a limited use in the CR and CRT zones and remove the plan area from the community serving retail CSR overlay zone. Since the only area in the county with the CSR overlay zone is within the boundary of the Tacoma Park Minor Master Plan Amendment, this CTA would effectively remove the overlay zone from the zoning ordinance. A public hearing is tentatively scheduled as noted for September 17th, 2024. Ms. Nadeau, is there anything to add?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, apparently I'm better on the zoning parts than on everything else. So that zoning text amendment, colleagues, is now introduced. We're going to move on to item 10B. This is a resolution to approve the Great Seneca Master Plan. I will just note on the Great Seneca Plan, this is one of our most important strategic areas of the county. It is the home of our globally recognized biohealth sector. It is also an area which finds some of our most important healthcare and research institutions. And this master plan that we undertook over several sessions of the council and several sessions of the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee was an effort to make this area a modern, livable, walkable, accessible area that meets the economic competitive needs and the transportation connectivity needs and the quality of life needs of our resident, moving from a campus style that looks inward with seas of surface parking and islands of buildings to a much more connected community that connects properties to one another, connects pedestrian and bike infrastructure with transportation infrastructure, and creates a much more modern, vibrant, livable, walkable, accessible community. With that, Ms. Dunn, anything to add?
Good afternoon, Council. I just would say for the record that the resolution was posted for a week. We did not receive any communication on the wording in the resolution, so it stands and it's before you for voting on action for this plan.
Thank you, colleagues. We have fleshed out the issues, including the road letters and everything in between. We heard from a number of stakeholders. We navigated through. I want to express appreciation to council staff and to planning staff and to all of the stakeholders who have weighed in throughout the process. This, like all master plans and sector plans, was a significant, comprehensive effort. And with that, we have a resolution that is before us, so I will entertain a motion to approve the Great Seneca Master Plan.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Katz, seconded by Councilmember Sales. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. And that is unanimous. Great. We are going to move on to item 10C. This is action on a resolution to approve the growth tiers map. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee recommends approval. This is an update to the 2012 growth tiers map to reflect sewer category changes that have occurred since the original current map was adopted and to correct inaccuracies in the original map. In 2012, the council approved SRA 1201 to comply with the Maryland Sustainable Growth and Agricultural Preservation Act of 2012. That was SB 236 at the time. That act required local jurisdictions to establish and adopt growth tiers to control the number of new subdivisions on septic fields. The purpose was to protect agriculture, control growth in rural areas, promote growth in areas that have appropriate infrastructure in place for it, and reduce nitrogen from septic systems, a primary pollutant of the Chesapeake Bay. The Planning Board recommends an update to the map that reflects sewer category changes since 2012 and to correct inaccuracies in the current map. Under SRA 1201, the County Council may amend the map consistent with Section 10.7 of the subdivision regulations. Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee work session was held on July 22nd, 2024. The PHP Committee recommended approval of this proposed update to the Montgomery County Growth Tiers map. As noted, this is is really just carrying out a state requirement and mandate, making technical changes to make sure that our policies and our maps are in alignment with one another. Let me turn it over to you, Ms. Nadeau, to add anything that I may have left out.
I have nothing to add, other than there are images in your packet to see the comparison between the current map and the map that is being proposed.
Great. I don't see any colleagues wishing to speak on this measure. I'll entertain a motion to approve the growth tiers map as recommended by the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Glass, seconded by Councilmember Balcom. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous, 10-0. The final item for District Council is Item 10D, Action on Zoning Text Amendment 2402, Agricultural and Rural Zones Campground. The Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee recommends approval with amendments. I just want to express my appreciation to the sponsors, Council Members Balcom, Lukey, Katz, and Fani Gonzalez. I was pleased to work with them and with stakeholders. There have been a lot of conversations that have taken place over the course of the last year, and want to express appreciation to them. I'll note the co-sponsors are myself, and in addition, Council Members Albornoz, Glass, and Sales. Zoning Text Amendment 2402 will allow campgrounds in certain agricultural and rural zones under specific conditions. Under the current zoning ordinance, campgrounds are only allowed in the rural and residential estate 2C zones. ZTA 2402 will expand the campground use to the AR and RC zones on properties that satisfy requirements for farming in the zoning ordinance. Additional requirements include a minimum acreage, a maximum number of structures, a maximum number of nights per guest, and limitations on kitchen and sanitation facilities. Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee work session was held on July 22nd. The PHP Committee recommended several amendments, including clarifying the type of structures that are permitted, increasing the number of nights per guest, clarifying the reporting requirements and deadline, reducing the maximum usable acreage, and other technical amendments. I know that Councilmember Balcom is one of the lead sponsors, has an amendment, but let me first turn it over to Ms. Nadeau to go through any of the zoning text amendment components that I may have missed.
I believe you caught all of them. For the text of the amendments, they begin on page 6 of the staff report. And then I, of course, have images if you want to see them. Otherwise, those images are also in your packet.
Like we often do in the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee, I think we look at pretty pictures more than any other committee. We looked at the pretty pictures and saw what we were talking about in terms of what would be permitted and what wouldn't be permitted, and what the intent of the sponsors and of the council was and wasn't, and clarified certain language to make it extra clear on what the Department of Permitting Services would allow as part of this effort. Now, without any additional comments, let me turn it over to Councilmember Balcom, who has an amendment, which I believe is on Circle A1, related to gas-powered generators. So let me turn it over to her.
Yes, thank you. And thank you to the PHP committee for your work on this. I know it was a lot. So members of the community asked us to clarify the use of gas generators in the ZTA, and thank you to those who've weighed in. It was never the intention of the ZTA to allow gas generators for tent camping, and so I'm offering this amendment that will prohibit the use of gas generators on this type of sleeping accommodation. The The amendment is no gas generators are permitted attached to the same structure as sleeping quarters unless attached to the recreational vehicle. And this just basically clarifies that that was never the intention of the ZTA.
I second the amendment.
The amendment was moved and was seconded. All those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. That is unanimous, 10-0. We now have an amended recommendation from the committee. We'll need a motion to approve, unless you want to make some comments.
I did want to make a comment.
Before we entertain the motion to approve, let me turn it over to Councilmember Balcom.
To approve the ZTA, not the amendment. We just approved the amendment.
The
right?
amendment has
Yeah,
been approved. We now
Thanks.
have an
Thank
amended
you.
version. We'll entertain a motion, but you can speak.
I would like to speak, thank
Yeah.
you. So this has been a long discussion, as everyone knows. I want to thank everyone for being involved. Limited camping in the Ag Reserve will do two important things. First, it allows farmers the opportunity to have small additional revenue stream, and it adds family-friendly experiential component to the farm. And the second very important thing that it does is it provides visitors another way to learn more about farming and the importance of the Ag Reserve. The real hero in this effort is the community. You spoke very loud and clear and shared the majority of your concerns. And I know that many of you would have preferred that this ZTA not go forward. And I particularly want to thank you for your grace and willingness to work with us to come up with a compromise that I believe will offer limited overnight stays while protecting this very important resource. So I want to thank specifically the Office of Ag, who's with us here today. Thank you. The Farm Bureau, Montgomery Agricultural Producers, Sugarloaf Citizens Association, Countryside Alliance, the county's Agricultural Advisory Board, and Agricultural Preservation Board. Of course, thank you to Ms. Nadeau for your expert guidance throughout this very long process. Thank Councilmember Lutke for her leadership in helping to navigate this discussion, and our staffs, Aaron Kraut and Craig Wilson, for their work. Councilmember Katz for as an original sponsor, and certainly appreciate Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez for starting this conversation and her willingness and the willingness of all the co-sponsors to come up with this agreement on this final ZTA. With that, I ask for my colleagues' support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Glass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, want to thank the sponsors of this ZTA and the sponsor of the previous ZTA, all of which grew out of conversations at the Economic Development Committee and Joint Committee with HHS, I believe, at the time, about our Airbnb regulations and trying to figure out how to continue agro-tourism. And I just want to give a shout out to the Ag Reserve and all the different farms and properties that participated in the farm tour this weekend. And I was driving around with my husband, visiting a number of places, and got to one new-ish property, Honey Acres Farm. And as I was pulling into the parking lot, I saw Councilmember Balcom pulling out of the parking lot. So we had a really nice conversation right then and there. But I also spoke with the owner, who was unaware of these conversations, who had just bought this property in the last 2 years and was trying to figure out how to make a business of it. It's a beautiful property with a lot of potential, and I know he's excited about this, and that's why we're doing it. And so I just want to extend my appreciation to everybody, not only on the council, but all the community members who shared their thoughts. And I know this is going to work out well, and we're going to have a lot more people loving the Ag Reserve because of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
I just want to say that Montgomery County is a beautiful and welcoming place. And I think actions like the one we're about to take is a reflection of that we're evolving as a society and we're being more inclusive. And I just want to share that and say also thank you to the small farmers who really, were the ones who, started the conversations when I was on the planning board a few years ago. And I want to thank them, especially Drew Baker. I want to thank him in particular for all his efforts, and I look forward to seeing overnight stays in his farm very, very soon. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other colleagues wishing to speak. Let me express my appreciation to the Office of Agriculture as well for all of your work in facilitating these conversations, Mr. Scheffel and your team. I thank all of the stakeholders. There was robust engagement here, to say the least. This is what local government is all about, and really want to particularly thank the district council members who represent the Agricultural Reserve, who really took on this assignment, and really appreciate Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez for her willingness to work together with the district council members to help get us to a good place. And I really do think that no process is perfect, but ultimately we're in a far better place today than we were, and that's thanks to a lot of collaboration on this body, which I think is a bright moment for this body and its ability to work together to work through issues and engage with the community of those affected in the process. So with that, thank you. I don't see any other colleagues wishing to speak. I don't see Ms. Nadeau telling me that we have anything that we've missed. So with that, we do have an amended proposal that was moved and seconded. And so, Madam Clerk, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Oh, no, so we need to take the motion, which we didn't do. Councilmember Balcom, do you want to move?
Yeah, I'll move.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Balcom, seconded by Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez. It has been moved and seconded, and now we will have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lukey. Councilmember Lukey is absent. Councilmember Mink.
Yes.
Councilmember Mink votes yes. Councilmember Sales.
Yes.
Councilmember Sales votes yes. Councilmember Glass.
Yes.
Councilmember Glass votes yes. Councilmember Jwando.
Yes.
Councilmember Jwando votes yes. Councilmember Katz.
Yes.
Councilmember Katz votes yes. Councilmember Albornoz.
Yes.
Councilmember Albornoz votes yes. Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez votes yes. Councilmember Balcom.
Yes.
Councilmember Balcom votes yes. Councilmember Stewart.
Yes.
Councilmember Stewart votes yes. Councilmember Friedson.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedson votes yes.
And that passes unanimously. And I was going to say the yays after the ayes again, but that was more of an ee. It was, yeah.
It was
Yeah. Yeah, the only feeling better than exuberance is relief. I would consider that out of order.
There'll be a lot more yelling than yays.
The final item on today's agenda is item number 11, which is action on a resolution to confirm the county executive's nominee to the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, Jonathan Powell. Our first item today was the interview of Mr. Powell, and he demonstrated in that conversation not only his commitment to the county, which he has shown over the course of the last couple decades at the Revenue Authority, among others, but the type of talent and professional background that we are so lucky to have in Montgomery County. I talk often about purpose-driven talent. And an example of purpose-driven talent, I don't think we could find a better one than Jonathan Powell, who I will proudly entertain a motion from colleagues to approve the resolution to appoint Mr. Powell, moved by the chair of the Environment and Transportation Committee, seconded by Councilmember Albornoz. All those in favor of the appointment of Mr. Powell to the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission? That is unanimous among those present, and the only person happier than Mr. Powell, I think, is my predecessor as District 1 council member, Howie Dennis, who has now finished his official duties as a representative on the body at WSSC Water. Want to thank him for all of his service in this particular role, but through the course of many, many decades, he has been an exemplary public servant, both in elected office and well beyond. We wish him well, and we express our gratitude to him for all of his work. The council will be in recess throughout August. However, council member offices are still staffed, and we are working to meet the needs of residents, so please call and email our offices to request assistance or to express your opinion. We expect and hope that you will not be shy. The next scheduled council meeting is scheduled to take place on Tuesday, September 10th. Council meetings may be held on Monday, September 9th, should they be needed. Want to thank colleagues for what has been a really busy summer. I, as a point of personal privilege, want to thank colleagues for all of their help and support of me throughout what has been a very challenging summer, coming out of the budget and all of the different dynamics that I have personally had to deal with, and really has reminded me that we say a lot that the council is a family, and it really has felt that way to me in particular. So thank you to colleagues, wishing everybody a good August recess. I look forward to being back here for council session for what is going to be an extremely busy fall with a lot of legislative and statutorily required obligations that we have as a district council and as a county council and as a body. And with that, colleagues, we are now officially adjourned.